Hi, hello. People are joining. Welcome to the town hall. We'll get started in a few minutes as people come on board. Hi. How are you, Naomi?
I'm good, thank you. Why is Hank now Brett?
Yeah. Brett had a facelift, and now look at him. He looks so much younger. Yeah, yeah. So you want to explain yourself, Hank? Why
Sure.
you are now Brett? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you Brett Shitty shows up as your name. That's very
Yeah, it
good.
does. Yeah, that's his account. I'm standing in for Brett so he can get some rest because he's not doing. Keith is going to talk about that, but Brett's like has a day off basically for tonight, so I'm standing in.
Yeah, yeah. Brett, who's um, our partner, uh, he is he's been ailing. He got an infection, and he's actually in the hospital now, and has been in the hospital for a little while. But he's continuing to progress, so that's very good news. Uh, but he wanted to say hello to everyone, and and uh, and tell you all that he appreciates the goodwill and the good wishes. And so Hank is his stand-in now. So I was teasing that Hank is that Brett has had plastic surgery and is recovering. So Hank is the new Brett. And Brett's name appears under Hank's visage. So nice to have you again with us, Brett. So let's jump in and get started. This is our town hall meeting, and it's our pleasure to do these events and every little bit. They're very it's an interesting way because I'll say a few things and then and talk about the what these principles are teaching us and what we're learning, and and then we can hear from you all, and if you have questions or comments or things that you want to share, uh, uh, that's kind of what the idea of it is here. The town hall is sort of like uh, a meeting of colleagues and town hall members. So you all are a member of the town. If you've joined our meeting here, welcome to our town, and it's nice to have you. And it's a friendly sort of place, and a place where we can uh, share um, whatever comes to our minds. The thing that I wanted to say is that these three principles are a really revolutionary um, comprehension spreading throughout the land, and they've really enabled me and many of us to find a kind of uh, shelter from the storm, you might say, from our usual thinking and our usual reactivity and usual sorts of problems and issues and things that we might have been uh, subject to and experiencing, and these principles were discovered or uncovered I should better say, by Sydney Banks. And he, when this happened to him, he 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 told his wife and mother-in-law that what he had learned would change the psychology and psychiatry and change the world, because he said these principles close the gap, or actually, I shouldn't say close the gap, remove the gap between the lost mind. It had a way of, they have a way of removing and suspending the influence of the lost mind. And so when he found this, he went back to his hotel where he was staying with his wife, and he says, "Isn't this great, dear? We don't have any problems." And she said, not knowing what he knew at that moment, she said, "Well, your problems may all be thought, but my problems are real." And she was upset about what he said, and he said, "Oh, no, 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 you misunderstand. I don't mean that uh, you're," because he could tell she was looking into her problems, and she had a lot of problems, and she was upset and bothered, and she was making it a problem that he said, "We don't have any problems." And so he tried to explain it to her, but she was not having it. She just didn't want to consider it, and she thought he was being judgmental of her. But he wasn't being judgmental of her. He was just sharing with what he had found, because he knew that this would change psychology and psychiatry. Now, he was a ninth grade educated welder, so he wasn't really in a position to you know, force his insight because of credibility by a university degree or anything like that. He just knew. He understood. This insight, you know what it did? It suddenly raised his level of consciousness, and he saw what would he saw a peaceful world, and he thought, if I share what I've seen with people, they will find a peaceful world too. And so that's what he set about doing. And as he talked to people, I heard about him from a conversation I heard in a seminar in Texas, of all places. And I'll share with you a little sidebar thought. He said these people were they were questioning Sid, because these two people were leading seminars all over the country and overseas about, and one of the things they had done was to teach people how to let go of the past. And when they met this enlightened man, Sydney Banks, they were surprised that he was seemingly interested in what they said. Well, he wasn't really interested in it to use it for himself. He was interested in it because he just had no idea what they were doing with people. Why would they process the past? And so they realized that he wasn't really interested in their methodologies and stuff. And so they asked him, "Well, what do you do to let go of the past?" And he said, "Well, it doesn't exist." And they were like, Oh, something about the truth of that struck them, but they didn't know what to make of that. But when I heard that in Texas, I thought, this was in 1976, I believe. I thought, I want to talk to that guy. That's interesting. I've never imagined anyone would say that the past doesn't exist, because to me, all of my profession, all of my uh, schooling, everything, the past was assumed to be part of the pattern. Well, he had jumped out of the pattern, and uh, so he could say it with authority that the pattern of the past is not real. And it brought him to that, the insights around that brought him to a new level of understanding. And he began to talk about that. And as he did through the years, people showed up from all over the place hearing about this person that had had this awakening, this enlightenment. And so I was part of that group, and he fascinated me. I could not get enough of Sydney Banks, and I know many of you have listened to him or listened to his recordings, or his videos, etc. And you always hear someone of surprising and extraordinary wisdom talking, and you get a feeling for something that he's pointing to that is beyond the current culture. The current culture, as we all know, is really struggling. The world is really distraught. There's a lot of atrocities and wars and bombings, and he said that the world hadn't really changed in a couple of thousand years, and we all were sobered by that proclamation, and but we somehow knew it was true. But what he was talking about was a break in that pattern, that there was a new dispensation that he saw that was before time, space, and matter, that there were principles that were before time, space, and matter, and that these principles would change mankind's psychological mind and thought and consciousness, and that we could now ascend to a different level, and because of that, we would find our way out of our self-created messes that we were innocently perpetrating upon ourselves and each other. And by golly, he was right. It hasn't become worldwide yet, but all over the country, all over the world, where people are catching on to these principles, they are understanding. They've raised their level of understanding, their level of consciousness has risen, and they're finding a way to live without problems. And it's quite an extraordinary thing to see beginning to happen. And this town hall is a way to celebrate that and to talk about that and to deepen that evolution, because evolution is not time. It doesn't take time. Evolution is in consciousness, not in time. So this is a break in time and space and matter. It's it's an evolution in consciousness. So this town hall meeting is a kind of our opportunity to get together and share and talk about this this evolution, and see if we can't really deepen it, for ourselves, to get a better grasp of this understanding and what it can do for us and do for our world. So our world being this, in this case, as sort of like a small group of us that I'm calling a town, welcome. And we're more than happy to be here and more than happy to talk about this. And on the ground, what this means for all of us is that we can wake up our wisdom, and our wisdom is not um, a personal achievement or a personal pride or a personal ego thing. It's it's brought about by this gift of thought that we have, and when we understand this gift, um, we learn, even if in our thinking we have brought something of the past or of our problems to mind and we're caught in it. That's not a problem. That's just we've created that with this gift. And what these principles really allow us to do is to lose interest in those experiences, those feelings, those torments, those insecurities and doubts and fears, all the psychopathology of people, myself included, and you too, are all um, deposited and created within this thought system that we uh, innocently create, and then we become prisoner of, and that is what is holding us all in a certain level. And when this level breaks down, and that's where all the wars and all the problems are, you lose your your you you lose your chains, and you lose your issues and your hold on a reality of uh, negativity, and you and thereby you lose interest in that, in what holds you prisoner, and your wisdom kicks in, and you get a wisdom that allows you to then move forward in life without problems being so uh, so on your mind that you become psychologically crippled. So so maybe that's enough to say at the outset here, and we're here to have a conversation and talk amongst ourselves, and have a town hall meeting. So uh, 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 I'll quit talking for a moment, and see if there's anyone has anything that they would like to share. And if you don't, it's okay. But I see Gil is waving his hand. Can you, how do we allow him to speak? New Brett? Does he just unmute himself?
I think, Gil, if you can unmute yourself, I can ask you, but I can't force it, I think. I'll have a look.
Unmute. Oh, there
Okay,
you
there
go.
I am. How's that?
That's good.
I was unmuted, so good to see you, Keith, once again.
Nice to see.
Slowly but surely getting that idea of the past doesn't exist. I think I'll get a bumper sticker or something like that and put on. Is there any value of looking at past events, traumas, whatever they may have been, responses with our current knowledge, that we have knowledge, more understanding of where our suffering comes from, where our pain comes from? Is there any value of going into events in the past with that more clear understanding of things?
Well, I think as but when you lose interest in your thinking, your past, the hold your past has, the prison of your past dissolves, and so there's no real value. See, it's an illusion. The past is an illusion of relevance and importance, and you can see how that creates these alienations, and those lead to the kind of atrocities that we see with wars, and for example, and racism, religious conflicts, etc. It creates a we they. It creates a separation, and the principles provide the power of thought. The power of thought, not thinking, but the power of thought provides a way to recognize the illusion of separation between the spiritual and the physical. When you experience that, and that's in your wisdom, you lose you lose that illusion, and you're brought into the present moment, and when you're brought there, you don't really talk about the worth of the past, because it loses its relevance to you, because you can be like take Sid Banks, for example. Like, he was in a past pattern for 43 years, and he was besieged by problems of insecurity and fear, and was having a difficult time in life. And when he saw this, it just disappeared. It immediately. He says in his autobiography, which is not yet published, he says, when he saw this, he just he said, immediately the strangest feeling came over me. I felt as well, before that, he had actually, I should go back before that too, even. He said, someone said to him, the past is essentially what he heard was the past was an illusion. And he said he kept talking about it cleared my head. It cleared my mind. And for 3 days and 3 nights after my first insight, I was inundated with such beautiful feelings that I barely slept a wink. It was as if a huge psychological dam had burst in my head, bringing simple answers to things. This is his wisdom showing him things that had bothered me all of my life. Little did we know this experience was only a glimpse of the revelation that was to come. On the third night, so he found this happened to him at this retreat he and his wife were attending. And he was sitting in the living room, and he says, his wife and mother-in-law were having this conversation. And again, I experienced this same hearing beyond what they were actually saying. All of a sudden, it was obvious to me that neither of them knew what they were talking about. Spontaneously, I burst into laughter. I guess you could call it a little bit of cosmic humor. Within seconds, my mother-in-law came storming into the living room, indignantly asking me, "What's so funny?" This only made me laugh more. And believe me, to laugh at Grandma was a definite no-no. My wife soon followed her mother into the living room. Both ladies seated themselves, clearly put off by the idea that I was laughing at them. He wasn't laughing at them. He was laughing at the cosmic humor. He could see that they were, chasing rabbits around and had no idea what was really going on. He said, this is a funny way to put it. He says, "I'm sure even a blind horse could have seen I was in deep trouble with these two women." I stood up, intending to try to explain to Barb and Grandma why I was laughing. Instead, I swung around and looked out the picture window, overlooking the ocean. The strangest feeling came over me. I felt as if I were being sucked down a short tunnel. Then, for a fleeting moment, I went beyond time, space, and matter. Suddenly, I stood in the living room, shrouded by a bright, buzzing, energized white light. This is when I realized a deeper meaning of God and the true nature of mind. This realization boggled my mind with its simplicity. I started to cry, and tears streamed down my cheeks as I said to Barb, "I'm home, pet. I'm free, and I've made it. I've conquered this world. Do you realize what this means? It means our lives will never be the same. I will be writing books and making recordings. Someday, doctors and therapists from all over the world will come to hear what we have found." Don't forget, by the way, this is a welder talking to his mother-in-law and wife. And back to the quote, "And for sure, it will bring about a psychology and psychiatry beyond anything the world has ever known. In turn, it will help millions of people who are suffering needlessly." He goes on to say that Barb and Grandma looked completely dumbfounded. I'll just read it. "They were so shocked by my unbelievable statements. Immediately, I could see the fear in my words had created in both women. To diffuse the situation, I started talking about welding rods. I often smile when I look back, wondering why in heaven's name I chose to talk about welding rods. The following day, both Barb and her mother would barely look at me or talk to me. When they did speak, it was a challenge. It was to challenge me on almost everything I said. At first, it truly puzzled me that Barb and her mom were unable to comprehend what I was saying. As far as I was concerned, I was talking plain, simple English. Yet my words were greeted as if they were in a foreign language. Now I realize that I had been naive, thinking that all I had to do was tell Barb and Mom what I was experiencing, and they would just naturally understand what I was saying. But at the time, regardless of my statement of the evening before, even I didn't realize the true depth and meaning of my experience, and that it would change the rest of my life into an unexplainable, mystical adventure. I remember the day following my experience, Grandma asked me in a challenging manner, "What makes you think you have anything to offer the field of psychology? You must be aware you are talking utter nonsense. You know absolutely nothing about the subject." I didn't blame her for posing the question or for her unkind comment, because she was completely correct. I knew nothing whatsoever about psychology. As a matter of fact, I couldn't even spell the word. He thought it was spelt with an S. I had no idea what to say in reply to Grandma's question, and I hesitated for a few seconds. Then, here it comes again. Then, for the very first time, and without any previous knowledge of their existence, I uttered the secret formula of the three principles, saying, because there are three principles: divine mind, divine consciousness, and divine thought. They are the trinity underlying all of humanity's psychological experiences here on Earth. And right now, I doubt that the field has even a clue of their existence. Turning to Barb, I said, "Don't you see, Pet, from the cradle to the grave, by using these three principles, which we're all doing right now, by the way, every human being in the world weaves their own entirely individual experience here on Earth." "What do you mean?" she asked. "It's like this, Pet. Before time, space, and matter, there lies a mystical world of formless energy that very few people since the beginning of time have ever known. By using these principles I'm talking about, we transform this formless energy into this physical world we call creation." So that's happening, right? These three principles are the ultimate mystery on Earth. You can't figure them out, which is something he would say a lot. And they are the missing link to the physical world and the spiritual world being one. The three principles are the greatest secret on Earth and hold all the answers that psychology, psychiatry, and all humanity have been searching for since the beginning of time. So back to your question, Gil. Something that big, something that infinite, something that huge, relegates the individual past little world of our history. It provides a way to resolve the dilemmas in your personal past, in your personal thinking, in your personal world. And so experiencing Sid and being around him and watching him and talking to him, and he never once would get lost in the personal stories and the personal importance of a person's past or their opinions or beliefs. He could just see it, I think, and so he would always just be free of it. And he would often say, as all of you have listened to recordings of him, he would say, don't try to figure it out. He was very gentle and sweet. He would just say, well, now don't try to figure it out. Don't try to figure it out. And you could see people, and that's what they were doing. They were trying to figure it out. And so he could see that. And he would say, just listen, because he knew that this answer was not a intellectual answer, that you couldn't figure it out. And he said, I wouldn't even consider trying to figure it out myself. I know what it is, but I wouldn't consider trying to figure it out. So he knows what it is. And why would he say that? Well, he said, because as soon as I did that, I would get myself right back into the mess again. So he was pointing to this capability of that every human being enjoys, this innate health, this ability to transcend their past and their little problems and their issues, and their wisdom would take them there. And that was more important than anything. And so he would talk about that consistently. And if all of you have heard recordings of him, that's what you're hearing. You're hearing a person not going into personal history and problems, Gil. And so when you listen to him, if you listen, you realize something's missing here. But that's a really important thing that's missing, because it's not about your problems, your histories. It's not a question of don't talk about the past. It's not like that. It's just that it doesn't pertain. It's not really where the answers are. The answers are in another dimension. And if you listen for that dimension in this town hall or anywhere else that we're talking, then you really found something that you can that will free you from something that you're beholden to. And if you find that, then you've really found something of value for yourself, and it'll clear your head. So lose interest in your thinking and in your past, and you'll find what he was pointing to.
I really like, I haven't thought of that, losing interest, actually losing interest in the past. You know, that's that
Yeah.
opens my mind, just trying to think of that and conceive of that. You know?
It does open things. You're right. It does. It's like, oh, okay. You can hear that. There's something about that stops you from perpetrating that rumination.
Yeah.
And that prisonhood. You know, when people like these programs, I talked to a lady who's leading a prison program in Oregon this week, and she was amazed that and they've done research and they've really proven these prisoners are living without prison walls in their mind, you know. But it's really interesting because it's raised a lot of unrest in the prison system. There are people in the prison system that are stuck in their past and what they believe the way you should do this. You should do these programs, and they don't. They object to her the way she's gone about it. And so, as I was talking to her, I said, "Now, don't forget that this is a liberation of everybody, even the guards and the administrators and even the people in the government. You know, this isn't just for prisoners. In fact, the prisoners were the easiest people she found to work with, because the administrators and the people that were running the prison, they had likes and dislikes and the way it should be done. And she said something to someone, I can't remember what comment she made it to some group, and oh, that was a big deal. And she's advocating a revolution among prisoners. And she said, I'm not advocating a revolution. I'm just advocating mental health for incarcerated people and for all people. But the administration, it frightened them.
Yeah.
But you can see why, though, because where did the fear come from? It's not coming from her program. It's coming from their own fearful thinking that they are paying attention to, right? They're paying attention to their fearful thinking, then they're going to feel frightened, right? And they haven't, the prison people have to lose interest in their thinking.
Well,
this is not just for prisoners, it's for everybody. Everybody, even people who are, you know, soldiers, people making war, people everywhere, people everywhere. The whole world needs to lose its interest in their thinking. And if we did and do, and as we do, our level will raise. And then when that happens, it'll be a new era, because it will create, you know, a completion and culmination of where we've been in as warring peoples. And we'll see that it's not necessary to be lost in our personal thinking, and the wisdom will lead us out of our habits and our fears and our negativities, and there will be peace on earth. There can be.
I used to work in prisons. I worked at Rikers Island in New York for a couple of years way back. And what you're describing is, I mean, it's a contradiction of what prisons are supposed to be about. They're supposed to imprison, confine, deny freedom. And here what you're describing is people are in prison and they're realizing more freedom in their mind, that's got to be a hard one for the authorities to grasp, I think. So,
yeah. Well, the physicality of, you know, it was thought that to punish, you punish physically, or you punish physical freedoms. But this doesn't really pertain to the physical. What this understanding is the illusion of separation between the physical and the spiritual. And so when these prisoners hear that, they lose their problems, and they lose their animosities, and they lose their past. And so they become a peace-loving, they become people who are less and less and less trapped in that separation. There is no separation between the physical and the spiritual. When people begin to see that, they can't. My wife has this wonderful phrase that I love. I'm going to put it in our book. We're the three of us, my wife and I, and are we're writing a book that includes Sydney Banks. So it's going to be there's going to be three authors: myself, my wife, and Sydney Banks. And so it's the only book that he ever authored with anyone. But he gave it to us to publish, and before he passed away. And so one of the I was saying, one of these favorite phrases of mine, of my wife, who would say, she says, because she's from Texas and she has a very blunt way of saying things sometimes. She says, "These principles make me behave." and I think, have you all found that these principles make you behave, make you lose your the issues and problems of your thinking and of your past and of your fears and your doubts. And when that happens, you just have to behave different. You just can't hold anything against anyone. It gets harder and harder and harder to do that. That's how you know your level, the trap of subject and object begins to disappear, and the oneness comes over you. And when that happens to these prisoners, and happens to the administrators running these prison programs, and then it goes out to the guards and to the people running the prison and the parole officers and the judges and the policemen. It all starts to change society from the inside, you see, from the inside, not by telling someone what to do or what they should think, but removing bringing a logic into the person. And the principles are a logic, a simple logic. They're not esoteric. They're not, some fancy new psychology or something like that. They're common sense, and the removal of the distinction between subject and object, between me and you, begins to disappear, and the oneness emerges. So that's what this town hall is about. It's the removal of the illusion of separation. And so when you're listening, and if you just get a drift of that, get a feeling for that, get a hope or a feeling for your own dropping out of your own negativities and your own separations, and just listen, you're finding something, you're finding the answer. There's a simplicity to it that is remarkable. It's not because of Sydney Banks or me or because of you either. It's just the removal of an ignorance. And by removing an ignorance, you elevate. You elevate, and you start to live in a different dimension without the old limitations getting in your way. And when they show up, you know that they're coming from your thinking. They're not coming from anywhere else. They're coming from your own misuse of these principles. And when you realize that's the thing that you're being shown, then it goes away again. And you don't live at the mercy of your former thinking. Your former thinking patterns are what creates a misery and a suffering every time. It's amazing how much. So if you like, I catch myself sometimes. I realize, oh, I was doing it again. It just seems so relevant. Seems so. I was really onto something for a minute or 5 minutes or days. I don't know. Like sometimes you're like with Citibanks. I mean, he was caught in a outside in illusionary pattern for 43 years. And but for his insight, he probably would have died with it. My wife's in a nursing home now, and her roommate is just she doesn't want anything to do with my wife, bless her heart. Like she's grouchy and yells at the nurse's aide, and she's constantly has to have the curtain pulled between she and my wife. She's just so miserable and unhappy. It's remarkable. So Valda's
you.
Oh, you're welcome, Gil. Sorry.
Well, thank you, Valda. Thank you, Valda, too.
Yeah. These principles make me behave. If the whole world would just behave, oh, where would we be? But we have to change. We have to get out of these resentments and judgments and hostilities, all of which come from our thinking systems. It's where they all live and breathe. And so you see people, like I'll see people on television, and they're just, they're just justifying and legitimizing and holding ill will, and they just they don't understand, and they feel strongly. So if you were to say to them, I mean, they feel so strongly, so committed, so justified, that it's like just one other thought that came from Sid's autobiography was that he said he didn't try, when his wife was really fighting him and accusing him of being judgmental, and he wasn't being judgmental. He was being wise, but she didn't recognize it as such. And so, but he said something really sweet. He said, I realized this was a long game, so he didn't have to really push her around, and that's the thing she talks about over and over and over again. She said he was always so sweet to me, so nice to me. He never really, I kept trying to pick a fight with him, and he would never fight. He would always understand, and always treated her with the greatest respect and loving kindness. and she couldn't get over it. Then she said, I got frightened because I thought I've lost control of my marriage because my husband is, I don't know who my husband is, but she came to fall in love with a new husband, you know, and because he took away her combatant, her opposition. He took away her partner that she loved to fight with and argue with and judge and be opposed to. He stepped out of that. He stepped out of the ring, like you know, they were in a ring together. You know, they're batting at each other, and then he thought, well, what are we fighting for here? You know, and he just stepped out, and he wouldn't get back in. So what else is happening out there in the community, in the town? Any new insights or things that are dawning on you that you want to share?
Hello, hi Keith. Can you hear me? Can I speak?
Yes. Hi.
Sorry, it's 7:56, although a little bit late now in Sydney, Australia in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
Where thank God for time differences. They go 2 hours here and 2 hours there, and it's wonderful that yours now lands at 7 a.m. rather than 5 a.m. So thank you. Uh,
Yeah.
I've been in the understanding, meaning introduced to it in I think 2018, late 2018, and there is change because I attend three pre-milieus, whether it's Judy Sedgman, Chris Heath, and I went to the Pransky's Pro Retreat, and I heard you here in Australia with in 3P Australia or something. You had a talk here once, and of course with Omar Ben Musa and all that. So exposure, a little bit of a drip feed, but it's, as we say, it's inside out though, and with still the habitual all the patterns of the background of, oh, you got to memorize this, do this, but there is one of the reasons I came in was obsessive compulsive overthinking, worrying, ruminating, not past issues play a part, but all the worrying, future oriented, so what if scenarios and shoulds, and with a set of economic insecurity and all that. And yet, yeah, when I talk to people, say, Divyesh, you have slowed down, and that's a good thing and all that. But in my head, there's nothing like slowing down, and I'm sort of tethered to that's just your insight. If you had, in your case, the tethered to misuse of thought. If I were to put it in one sentence, like constant overthinking and this ruminating and worrying, it takes out big chunks of the day. And I brought it up with a few other people who, like you, who have been in close proximity, contact, and insightful with Sydney Banks. And one said, you wait for an insight, or an insight will dislodge what you might find useful in that personal thinking. But this insight has not come since 2018. I'm not grasping for it, but what is it that I keep on getting tethered to worrying and misuse of the power of thought, of the divine thought? What am I doing? I mean, I know it's inside out, but just, I mean, any suggestions or insights from your side? Thanks, Keith.
Oh, you're welcome, Divyesh. Did I say that right, Divyesh?
Yeah,
Divyesh?
thank you. Thanks.
Uh, well, you, we all have this a thought system, and when you um are tricked by it, you process, and when you process, you think, worry, well, what about this? Or how, and maybe one of those that might be pertain to you is be, oh, why am I doing this wrong? Why is this happening? So that's what Sid would call, if you listen to his recordings, which I recommend anyone to do, they're the best thing on the planet to listen to, in my opinion. The you'll if you listen enough, or listen at some point, you realize, well, what maybe he's talking about that. Maybe he's talking about uh it not talking about losing interest even in my um obsessive compulsive ruminative um going over and over and back over and this way and that, because I've had people who were paralyzed in their lives by obsessive compulsive diagnosis, and they took medications, they
Mm.
tried that, and they couldn't break it, but the principles broke it because they saw that, oh, oh they had just a glimmer of an insight. And as soon as they had a glimmer, they had like it was like a suspension of their own disease and their processing, and they just had a glimmer out of that trap. And when they did, they uh, they got a they got that's when the insight came. The insight came was that, oh, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about finding something beyond my thinking. And there's a there's a there's another dimension beyond your personal thinking. And when you experience that, you have what he talks about there, and what I read, your head will clear. Just just your head will clear. And there's nothing to think about. There's nothing to fear or worry about. There's a peace, just a glimmer, of that will, Devish,
Yeah.
it will stop your mental illness. I had a man just the other day that I've known for a number of years, and before I knew how to help him, he had a psychotic break, and he was just spinning, and he was in a hotel room, and his father called me and said, "Can you help my son?" And so I went to him, but I didn't know what I knew now about this uh, losing interest in your thinking. So he was, that was many years ago. He called me again just the other day, and he says, I'm starting to go back again. I'm starting to feel this panic, and I'm starting to get paranoid, and I'm starting to get uh to feel like I'm for him, he would get delusional, you know.
Right.
I just think he'd get delusional. So he thought he was untouchable, and he could go to the casino and win big money, and that he was, he just got out there in his thinking. And so I talked to him, and even in this is a phone conversation, and he heard me. He heard me, and he just, I had to say it a few times, but he just went, oh. And he found a kind of place to think from that was not under the throes of his delusion. And he could see it. And he quieted down, and then right away he starts talking to me from that wisdom. He starts saying, you know, this reminds me of something. And I could hear him breaking down the stranglehold of his own delusional thinking system that he had been bouncing around in and being overwhelmed by. But he was talking from a place that was unlimited by that. And he really, I could tell from his feeling that he was in, it was different. It was like, he was literally recovering from a psychotic break on the phone.
Oh, okay.
And and he said, thank you. And I said, well, you're welcome, but I could hear him, and he could hear himself not being afraid. It's like he came back to his truth, and his truth was a truth it wasn't his truth, but it was a feeling of a truth that was comforting him and healing for him. And that's when you synchronize. When you find that, it's like it's like a cleanup crew comes in and synchronizes your own mental illness, your own lostness. And with that, when your universal thought system synchronizes with your personal lost thought system, it obliterates your mental illness. It just cures it, starts to cure it, calm it down, make it be less feature. It features less in your own experience. And that's what you're looking for, Divyesh. You're looking for that kind of synchronization. And you hang on, you listen for that. And in the programs you're attending, and the 3 Principles programs, etc. Or Brett and I, by the way, have a program that we're doing that meets twice a month called Uncovering the Hidden Dimension. And that's what the purpose of it is to uncover this way of understanding life. And you can it meets twice a month, by the way. It meets twice a month. It's a wonderful program. And if you check out our website, 3principlespsychology.com,
Okay.
you can find out membership information on there. And we'd love to have you. And there's a library of past meetings. So there's a catalog of other events. We've only been doing it for a couple of months now, that you can listen to, that are just incredible. They're just wonderful.
I think I'm a member. That's why I managed to get the email to come to this one. I have been a member since I heard in the intro with Brett and you, and I sometimes it is that feeling in this presence with you guys and the other practitioners or whatever you would call, and of course the ultimate source, which is listening to, like last time was Shane Kennedy giving out new Sydney Banks videos. Now that's, but I keep on saying, my head says, that's all very well, but where is your inside out resonance with what the presence you're feeling now, which is, if to put it in one word, right now, top of my head is reassurance. How you say, look, there is a solution. There is a divine mind. There is a good use of a wise use of thought, and there is always the possibility of higher consciousness, so depth of understanding, love, contentment, and flourishing. And all these are pretty good now, except when I put this down, I'll go and tether myself again to the crappy thing. So, but it's wonderful to know only the solace at the moment is, given that I have this feeling now of ease of being, that means it's there. That
Yes,
means it's there.
yes, it's always there. It's
Yeah, that's the, yeah.
that's a principle. A principle, these three principles are always there, always, because they're not,
Despite,
you know, they're not a personal, they're not personal, they're universal consciousness, universal mind, universal thought. It's not a thought, it's not a personal thing to personal people. Some people have it and some people don't, or it's not like that. It's immortal, and it's principles. We haven't understood principles of psychology. That's why I read that piece, because Sid found that, and he knew, he said, this doesn't have anything to do with me. It doesn't have anything to do with Elsie Spittle. It doesn't have anything to do
yeah,
with anybody on the island. So when you hear people talking about it in a personal way, they don't really get the principles. They're talking about something that is a separating thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a unifying thing, a welcoming thing, a truthful thing that has nothing to do with any person. It's
mm,
it's an impersonal, universal thing. And so it doesn't, no one can own it or license it or or anything like that, because it doesn't pertain to that. This is beyond that. This is beyond, like the title of the piece that I was reading, uh, Sid's autobiography, Beyond Time, Space, and Matter. That's what he found. He found that universal, he says, divine mind, divine consciousness, and divine thought are the Trinity. So he saw beyond the, he saw to these principles that are pure and that everybody uses. And then that's where we get into trouble. We use them innocently and ignorantly against our own selves and against humanity, and we create mental distress. But that mental distress is not required. It's suffering needlessly,
yeah,
which is really cool if you really get your teeth into that and you really go, so my this is the way it looked to me, like, oh, so my psychological suffering is needless. Oh, well then right away it helps stop my mind, because your mind will get quiet. Your personal mind gets quiet. When it gets quiet, there's that synchronization with universal mind, and you forget about your problems and your
yeah.
habits.
Thank you, Keith, and I'll keep on coming up to the membership and everything. I mean, it's a beautiful presence, and at the moment, that's all for this moment. It's just good to recognize. Yeah, thanks.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So how are we doing, crew? Oh my goodness, have we? Oh no.
There's 15 minutes remaining, so we're good.
Yeah, I looked at I have a clock right by me here that I haven't changed for the time, and I thought, oh my gosh, we've gone 2 hours and 25 minutes, or 2 hours and 15 minutes. I thought, oh, that's not good. I've completely lost all bearings, but it's only we're good.
Hey
So, yeah,
Keith, it's Trevor. Can I ask you a question?
sure.
Yeah, I've recently been in STEPS program for a variety of addictions. You know, the 12 steps.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I guess as a psychologist, you've come across that before as a way of
Sure.
sort of I guess like improving behaviors, that you could call it, or
Huh?
like getting rid of. I mean, they call addiction a sickness, a disease. Um, but I'm being pushed from one step group to another. I'm just being told I've got more and more. Like, like I'm addicted to technology, I'm addicted to alcohol, I'm addicted to narcotics, I'm addicted to codependence. I've just got this huge list now of people who have just gone, yeah, you need to do this and do that. So uh, I've got approximately 45 coping statements in these groups. And
Mm.
the other day I was just thinking, do you know what? I can't take it anymore. I'm so overwhelmed. And if I'm supposed to release a codependency, then why am I becoming codependent on all these groups? It just didn't make sense to me. So I just wanted your take on, the differences between 12 step and the three principles when looking at addiction, and what your opinion is or what your experience is.
Well, thank you very much. That's a wonderful, wonderful question. In the maybe I would say this, in the old psychology, there was an ignorance of these principles, and in place of that, well, they didn't really know what the principles of psychology were, and so they had movements and processes and people that would come along and say, oh, this is the answer, oh, that's the answer, do this or do that. So psychology became splintered, and it was full. It is today. It's full, just exactly like what you're saying. It's full of self-help groups and all kinds of issues and problems, and all of which are part of the symptom that they're not getting us anywhere. They're just running around in circles in another disease, and another thing to be afraid of, another thing to fix and conquer. And all of that is all in a thought system that's lost. It's a lost thought. It's a lost thought system of what you need to do to get mentally healthy. Now, the principles are not relegated to that. The principles are before that, beyond that. It originally, soul and consciousness before time, space, and matter, and in addition, before the thought system, before this thought system, and before time, space, and matter, consciousness and soul were one. They're the same thing. So when you find something that goes beyond your own problems, your own fears and doubts and addictions, you're trying to help yourself. I know you are, but you have to look for something that is original. This is original mind, original consciousness, original thought, not a technique or a method or a 12-step or this step or that step. That's not, that's before principles, or without principles, I should say. We're talking principles, and when you find principles, then you really found something. And what you find is you can just quiet down. You know, when you find an answer that speaks to you, inside you, and you say thank you. There's something that happens to a person that heals, that they just they know they found the answer, and you can't talk them out of it. You can't scare them out of it, because it's not fragile. You know, you don't feel fragile anymore. You feel solid, you feel grounded, you feel like you don't have to think about that. So again, like I was saying, all of those addictions and all those issues and all those steps and all those processes and all those groups and all those, that it's chaos, it's splintered, it's a splintering, a shattering of methodologies. But the reason they're all shattered is they don't have principles. And it's the shattering of the helping process that most of the world is lost in right now. So we're talking about something that will jump beyond all of that shattering. It's like trying to repair a shattered mirror or something like that that's broken into a million little pieces. There's just no way. There's no way. You want to find something for you that will bring it all together under a new organization. And there's an organized whole of principles that will take the world out of its mess and its oppositional processing and running about trying to fix things. Like I remember one time Sid was talking about a conversation he had, and he pressed a person. This was after his enlightenment. He pressed the person about something. He said, and the guy says, "Well, I don't know. Do this, do that." He says, "I've got problems too." The guy did, you know. And so Sid thought, well, you've got problems and you're trying to help other people with their problems. And Sid said, that sounds like the blind leading the blind, you know?
Yeah.
And look and see if people you're talking with or trying to help you, do they feel, are they happy people, you know?
No. Not a lot of them. A lot of them are quite scary. Very controlling and Yeah, terrifying. I'm sure there's
Yeah,
some good ones, but
yeah, yeah.
for
Well,
me, it just feels like I've reached my bandwidth. I can't take it anymore.
yeah,
Like I'm just like I had a meeting the other day and I broke one of their rules and they immediately stopped the meeting and read the rule and I was like, oh my God, where are we? Like kindergarten? What's going on? Like just let people express how they feel. Like with all these rules. Like how do you ever get to a space of I've shared what I need to share? You know, so anyway, I left.
but when
Oh,
you know, when people get really rule bound and they lose their the rules become more important than the feeling of love, right? You're looking for a
mm,
feeling of love and understanding that will bring you back to your own mind, your own original mind, your original consciousness, your original thought. That's where it comes back together. And that's what Sydney Banks found. He found
yeah,
something that was right here. It was right here for all of for everyone, but he didn't know it. And when he found it, it was unbelievable. It was like, well, my God. And he felt so grateful, you know, that he found what he was looking for. And that's
in
what
the steps, they believe they always talk about a higher power. Is that what you're talking about, or is that what Sydney was talking about? Love and understanding being like a force outside of me that if I let go to it, it's gonna guide me, type thing.
well, yes and no. I'd put it that way. And I don't mean to be defeating at all, but I'm just saying is that, of course, it's when you go beyond this prison, you you find something that you've been looking for, and it's an integration of the spiritual and the physical. The spiritual and the physical are one truth. When you find that one truth, you find something that's inexplicable, but it's true, it's real. But you don't have to have a theory about it or a concept or a belief. It's not a belief. And what Sid found, he said, and by the way, you can get books that he wrote,
Yeah.
and and I recommend them. But this is just one piece from The Enlightened Gardener Revisited.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And he says, I've told you because they're asking him this, one of the characters in the book are asking him, well, I thought this just had to do with psychology. And he says, the character who's Andy, which is Sid, says, haven't I told you again and again that the three principles of mind, consciousness, and thought, again, now these are an overarching secret that psychology has not had. That's why it's shattered and broken up into pieces like you're experiencing. He says, haven't I told you again and again that the three principles of mind, consciousness, and thought cover all sciences, all psychological beliefs, all philosophies, all religions, and all human behavior. So, so that kind of stuff was a stopper for this group in this book. but it pertains to, if humanity knew these principles, whether they be a physicist or a physician or an addict or a housewife, or it would cover all things. That's the general ontology, or the general understanding that everybody's been looking for since the beginning of time. And this is it. This is that one truth. And we can tell by how poorly we're doing on that account if you look at just exactly what you're saying, with all these groups and methods and techniques and addictions and codependencies. And if you look in there and you keep going with that, you could die with that. You won't get anywhere. You'll be spinning your wheels because you're not finding what you're looking for. You want to find what you're really looking for, and that's a unification, a calming down, a change from within your own mind that will bring you back to sanity. And you can live, you can live and begin to live and begin to experience life from a dimension that isn't lost in your thinking. Just like Divyesh was saying, I get lost in my thinking. Well, you get lost in my problems, you'll never figure it out. You'll never figure it out, because that's a symptom of a lost mind trying to find itself. And it can't, not until you stop and you find your own sense, your own deep sense of giving up on the search, and you give up on your thinking system, finding the answer. That's not where the answer is. And then when you lose interest in that, you don't know what to think. You don't know what to do. You found, you know what you found? Nothing. You find nothing. And that's the answer. It's nothing. No, there's no thing. There's no it's what Sid called no thought. When you find a space of no thought, it just means your personal thinking system that's driving you crazy anyway just stops, and you go quiet. Your mind goes quiet. And that's what Sid's talking about. He's saying that I've never had a clear head. My head has never been so clear in my life. Well, what did it clear of? Well, it cleared of all those things, all those problems. And when it stops and those problems clear, your wisdom kicks in. But your wisdom isn't really, you're not thinking about your problems anymore. You're not thinking about what to do. You just know what to do. So you tie your shoes, or you do your laundry, or you bake a cake, or you call a friend, or you find normal again. I mentioned at the beginning of this call, one of the people that's been studying with us, his name is Svi, and he's a religious man. He's a Jewish man. And all the different stresses and problems of people that they're having with the news, and what are we going to do? And there's anti-Semitism, and there's this fear and that fear and this problem and this armies and that are those all these and so I talked to Svi and I said, so how are you doing, Svi? What's happening for you? He says, it's kind of weird. He said, I feel normal. Well, that's when you find a normal person, you've really found something. You found a regular, normal, mentally healthy person that's not, getting beat up by the problems of their lives. That's what you're looking for. Hey, so I
Thank
see now-
you. Thank you, Keith. Yeah.
Oh, you're so
Cheers.
welcome. You're so welcome. And thank you all for this town hall meeting. I really appreciate your presence and your time and your love.
Keith,
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
sorry for not bringing this up earlier. Bruce previously had his hand raised twice, but he didn't really get through. I realized you've been talking for 1.5 hours already. But maybe we could take a look at it, or maybe it's just a done deal for today. I just wanted to mention it.
Okay. All right. So
Oh.
sorry, Bruce.
Not necessary. We can catch it another time. It's just nothing of acute nature, so I'll just revisit it.
All right. All right. Well, we'll be happy
Thank
to
you.
address it next time. We'll give you first
Sure.
shot.
All right.
Okay. Okay. God bless everyone. You take care.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Keith.
Thanks. Bye.
Best wishes to Brett.
Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hank. Bye-bye.